Charles Fauré. Fauré was one of the great late Romantic French composers. He was revered in his lifetime, adored in his native France. He had a very interesting life. He lived to be a ripe old age of 79. He was obviously a composer. He was a professor, taught at the conservatory in Paris, a pianist and an organist at the Church of the Madeleine, which I actually visited last year. I was so happy to finally go there and feel the vibrations that Fauré had actually played there. It was really a marvelous experience for me. This is an early piece in Fauré's career. It's Opus 17. It's a charming piece. It's rather simple harmonically on the surface. But as we take the deeper look, the seeds of his inventiveness and almost a daring harmonic use are apparent in this piece. I'd like to start by showing you the left hand. What this is, as written, is that's the opening 4 measures of the piece. It's an introduction. It's really a loop. And if I play this as a block chord redistribution, this is what we have. Measure 1, measure 2, measure 3, and measure 4. Listen again. That beautiful tenor. Now the plot thickens. In measure 1, our very opening note, and this is an A-flat major. This is our key of A-flat major, the scale. The 7th step is this G natural. We'll get to that in just a minute, how he uses that note very specifically. Now looking at our very first note, the A flat, which is our tonic, our 1, in our key, there's a downward stem and an upward stem. My students say, oh, why? Why? Lots of times they don't even see it. What that means is it's one note shared by 2 parts, shared by the bass and by the tenor. The downward quarter note, the upward is a quarter note, and the lower are the 16th notes. In any case, that first note has to sustain. So if I were to redistribute this, it would sound like this. Holding. Remember, Fauré was an organist. So I hear that actually as a pedal from the actual pedals of an organ. So we want to try to sustain that as long as possible. We can't really reach that far, maybe a 10th, but certainly not up to here, a 12. That's too, so we have to sustain it with the pedal. That happens 4 times. Before I get to the melody, I want to continue with my block chord analysis, because what makes this piece so challenging, a lot of things make it challenging, but the left hand is deceptively difficult. It sounds so easy, it sounds pastoral and simple, but it has all these little hidden pitfalls. So let's take the left hand alone. That loop happens 4 times. Now on the beginning of our system 3 here, we move out of that. I'd like to play that left hand still using our block chords. Listen to how he moves out of that almost monotonous A flat major loop, and this is what he does. That's F minor. And as written, climbing. to yourself that they're not easy. They're constantly changing. Let's look again. Octave, third in measure 18, fourth, seventh, fourth, sixth. Isn't that beautiful? All right. I'm going to play the soprano line now. This is the melody. Now, with the chart here, which you can get at my website, sallychristianmusic.com, this is a fabulous chart. I don't chart anything that I'm not just wild about as a piece, and also that I think I can make an enormous improvement on the traditional music that we are used to seeing. This definitely fits that case because of the symmetry of each of these systems. What you see is what it is. Now, taking my protractor, I have lined up bar lines, measure 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, right here at the midway, our melody enters, and it's on the upbeat. It's on the second beat. And he starts on the E flat, which is the 5th of our home key. How lovely. It's like he starts from high, almost as a question. Dolce, sweetly. And then he pauses, he's lingering, he's thinking. Now, here we go. That's 7th. So beautiful. That's your opening phrase. So practice that all by itself. Now we start again at the midpoint. Notice there's a caesura, a little breath mark here, so breathe. Start it again. This is an exact repeat. You can see it. How stunningly beautiful is that? Absolutely the same. So once you've learned this, you've learned that. Second time. Okay? That's the end of the similarities. Midpoint, the first time went, the second time goes, even higher. Remarkable. And then it comes down. And rests on that 5th. All right, now I would like to play this starting from the second time here. Our second time. Hear the F minor. Didn't last long, did it? Right back to our major. That's E flat major, which is the 5th of our home key, A flat. But he is not there but a second. And with our page 2, see how beautiful this addition is? This is our development section that starts on page 2. We go immediately to a surprise modulation to the parallel minor of E flat minor. We were not expecting this. Let's take a look at that left hand first. And I circled my top notes in turquoise here. I use turquoise for tenor because, again, that has to be heard and learned and practiced. This is an 8-measure phrase. This is an 8-measure phrase. So this actually is our middle section, and you can see it. Practice these out of context back and forth. Let's take a look in more detail here. All the amazing things that he's using in this piece. First with the left hand, I'm going to play this just as blocked chords. And as written. Now what goes over this, I was so happy to find this. We learn in our harmony classes that we have 3 forms of minor. In E flat minor here would be natural minor, would be the 2nd form harmonic minor. We have a 3rd form, which is actually what he's using. Except instead of E flat minor, it's in B flat minor. Finally, an application for the melodic minor. And we put this all together with our first system. Listen to how stunning this is now. Portato. Breathe. Another caesura. The upbeat. Going on. Stunning. That's our 5th of, and you guessed it, recapitulation. Back to our home key of A flat major. So our middle section was short-lived with that exploration of the minor, the yin and the yang, the back and the forth. This is a typical vocabulary of Fauré, which he developed quite a lot later in his life. This betwixt and between these keys of not really sure where the tonality is. Now with our recapitulation comes yet one more fantastic bit of compositional delight. We get a canon. Our melody now, instead of a single voice, he puts it up, that same melody, up an octave, and what does he do underneath? He takes the alto and answers at the distance of 1 beat. This is called a canon. Now, I made my pink circles for the soprano and my yellow for the alto, and that way I could actually compare and see, is it an exact repetition? And it is. So let's just take a look at this, starting with the upbeat here in measure 40. This is the same 8 measure, 4 and 4. Here's the soprano. And here's the alto. Isn't that beautiful? Then when you put them together with the right hand, that is not easy. And what helped me going on is to say octave here. Octave. Octave. 3rd. I had to go over that last 4 measures so many times. This left hand alone is now just like the beginning, except we have an octave in the bass. So we've expanded this. Our melodic line jumped up an octave and our bass line went down an octave. So we've opened. And listen to how that sounds. It's dolcissimo, as sweetly as you can. Beautiful. Now comes what I call the golden jump point. I made that up for myself. It's the moment in the piece where things can go wrong. It's the weak link in the piece. I use this all the time as a mnemonic with my teaching. We are only as good as our weakest link. If one of these things is weak and the chain breaks, doesn't really do us much good, does it? Well, that's what we're having in the next section in the piece. And so I made, it's the beginning of page 3, these 8 measures here are notoriously difficult. This is what scares people about the piece, and rightly so. Now I made this stunning addendum that comes with your chart, and I broke it down into the 4 voices that it is. The pink and the yellow for the soprano and the alto, and the tenor and the bass, the blue and the green. Now looking at just the first beat of each measure, we have an ascending harmonic pattern. And I'm going to play those, just the first beats. And this is how you need to practice this. You don't need to, but it will certainly help. Oh, listen to this. At 9th. Let me take the soprano alone. Up to F. Now the F repeats. Up to A flat. There's the crest. And I'm going to play now the soprano with the bass only, just the 2 parts. Tenor. This is very interesting. Again, it's a buried part. It's in the middle. We have it broken down. If I were to play it as blocked chords, we have a 5th and a 6th, 4th and 5th. Now that pattern repeats for the next 2 measures except up. So if I were to play it as written, those 2 together, this is what the bass parts sound like as redistribution, left hand, right hand, bass, tenor. Now playing it with one hand, that becomes difficult. Hard enough, we're going to add the 4th part, and this is the part that pretty much brings the ship down if you haven't studied it. It's this alto, and it sounds like this. It's actually the pivotal ascending line because it's the only one that really goes up stepwise without interruption, with the E flat in measure 49 as our start note, up to F now, G flat, A flat, it took me a long time to get that. Redistribution, it will sound like this, soprano, alto. It's a canon, but it's not an exact canon because the right hand, right here in measure 50, with that repeated F, breaks the pattern. So it's called an altered canon. Almost a canon, but not exactly. Isn't that beautiful? And it is very, very, very difficult. As written, and finally all together. working on that, you will have it. I'm not kidding, it is extremely difficult. Some people actually call this a level 9 piece as far as difficulty. Alright, now going on, after we finished that beautiful 8 measure golden jump point, we'll start here. One more loop as we started. We've heard this before. But of course he's not going to repeat it again in its full 4 measures because that would be boring. He's giving us something new. He saved the very end, the last 2 systems here, and that's why I re-engraved this to start here. I could have tagged this on over here, but I wanted to start with a new system because we have now the appearance of a descant. A descant is an added part, and it's the highest part. It's the highest soprano part. Look what he does here. This is so magical. And the second time he does it a little bit different. It's a little bit of whimsy, just a little bit of playfulness and lightness. I'm going to start here with the last statement here. Last system here, measure 67. This is the coda. This is really a bit of magic here. Let me take the left hand by itself. Notice again the double stem direction on the beginning note of each measure, and we have a beautiful descending line. Together. This is a beautiful moment in the piece right here. Triple piano. It's an augmented chord in the right hand, and in the left hand that's really a minor chord in the open position, so he puts an augmented and a minor, and this is the blend. You know what this piece reminds me of when I'm through playing it right now? I actually feel cleansed, and a quote comes to my mind. It's this: music washes off our soul the dust of everyday life. Isn't that a good idea for this piece? It just kind of gets everything back to that perfect state of harmony and balance. Enjoy practicing your Fauré romance without words. Thank you.